and welcome people as they come in, but I don't see anyone yet.
All right, I think we're seeing a few folks trickle in. If you didn't see Jenno's message in the chat, be sure to share your name, where you're dialing in from. If you are in the mental health profession, share what you do or what your practice focuses on. And if you're a member of the Sonder fam, let us know. We are always excited to see where everyone's dialing in from.
Yay, welcome everybody.
And we'll give folks a few minutes, so feel free to get settled in. Remember, this event is also for you, so light a candle, maybe get your coloring pens out so you can doodle while you're listening or paying attention. And be sure if you have questions along the way, you can pop them into the chat. Hi, Heather, welcome. Oh, and yay, you've been in the Sonder fam this year. Awesome. Like we have Aislinn from North Carolina.
Hi, Heather. Hi, Aislinn.
We've got Beth from New York. Looks like we have quite a few folks from the Sonder fam. This is super exciting to see all of you using Silk and Sonder already. You'll have a very unique perspective on everything we're going to be talking about today.
Beth, love to see that it's helping with the seasonal depression.
It's also awesome just to see, you know, therapists actually creating space for themselves, because you give so much to others. So it's awesome that, you know, we've got folks that are actually practicing what they preach. That's amazing. Great. Megan, we'll give it maybe like a minute or so.
Sure, yeah. You can wait till 7:05 and or 8:05.
8:05 or
5:05. Wherever whatever time zone you're in, 6:05.
Hi, Gina from SoCal. I'm from SoCal originally too, so shout out to you.
Oh my gosh, it's the first day of November. You're right, Jen. I just realized that. Hi, Marissa. Great. Amanda's saying the volume's very low on her end. Is anyone else experiencing low volume?
Not on my end.
Oh. Maybe if you go to your settings, I'm not a very techie person, but Amanda, if you go to your settings, I think you might be able to figure that one out.
Yeah, and depending on if you're dialing from your phone or your desktop, maybe double check the audio connection there and see if that helps.
Okay, well, we're at 7:05, so let's get started, and hopefully some more people will trickle in. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Silk and Sonder's first therapist symposium, where we're unveiling the Thinking Traps assessment and helping us all how to understand our clients' negative thoughts. I am Megan Bruneau. I am a therapist who's been in practice for 15 years, but I'm also an executive coach. I'm a Forbes contributor. I am the host of the Failure Factor podcast, where I interview entrepreneurs on their very messy, very imperfect and beautiful entrepreneurial journeys, personally and professionally. And I am someone who has used journaling in my life and for my mental health since before we had computers in our homes. So a very long time. And I'm just so grateful to be here and to facilitate this conversation today. We have so much wisdom, and our hope is that, you know, we can just have a really great conversation, and you all can walk away with some skills or some tools that you can use in practice and support your clients with, but also maybe use in your own lives. If you have questions throughout the event, please drop them in the chat. We'll make sure that we leave about 15 to 20 minutes, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. We'll see how it goes, for questions at the end. But we can have kind of an ongoing dialogue, or if there's something timely you want to pop in, we can try to answer that one on the fly. I want to also just introduce you to my little co-therapist here. This is Lexi. So she's besides my my journaling, she is my self-care for sure. So she's on my lap. So if you see anything tugging on my headphones, that's what that is. But we're going to get started. We're going to get into everything about Silk and Sonder and about the Thinking Traps assessment test. But before that, we want to speak to all of our panelists, or have them introduce themselves. And of course, Meha, the founder of Silk and Sonder. So why don't we start with Meha? Why don't you introduce yourself, and we can go to our panelists as well after that.
Awesome. So hi, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Meha Agarwal. I'm the founder and CEO of Silk and Sonder. I see that we have a lot of folks from the Sonder fam, but for those of you who are less familiar, Silk and Sonder is a self-care and self-improvement company that uses guided journaling and emotional health tracking to help individuals across every generation reduce anxiety and stress, boost productivity, achieve their goals. And we'll get into the details, but that is what I do and what I've been up to for the past 4 or 5 years now. And before that, I was a software engineer and product manager for companies like Goldman Sachs and Stitch Fix. So I'm super excited to be with all of you here today. And thank you for taking the time. I know there's plenty of things that we could be doing this evening. So appreciate having you all here with us.
Thank you, Meha. Can't wait to get into your journey and learn more about Silk and Sonder and your personal experience. So Dr. Shea, how about you next?
All right, greetings to each of you. I am Reverend Dr. Shalita Mira. I am the founder and clinical director of the Heart Center Journey. I'm a psychologist, licensed clinical social worker, and also a certified addictions professional. I have been in the field for about 17 years as a private practitioner, as well as a faculty member. So I teach at 3 different universities. Absolutely love training therapists. And I absolutely love Silk and Sonder, so that is why I am here. I've used it in my private practice as well as with my students in the field of academia. And I'm hoping to just connect and be able to share with you from my wisdom and hopefully add to your clinical growth. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shea. And Dr. Kwan, how about you?
It's hard to follow all of this, but it's a great group to be a part of. I'm Dr. Sarah Kwan, and I am a psychologist in San Francisco. I have a practice where I also am a clinical supervisor, and we focus on women's mental health. I've been in the field for about 15 years, both in the community and in private practice. And I'm also a scientific advisor at Silk and Sonder, which has been an exciting journey for the past few years. Also mom to a very young child, so I will have to hop off at around 5:30.
Perfect. Okay, well, we'll try to squeeze as much knowledge out of you as possible before then, Dr. Kwan. Awesome. So let's dive right in then. So Meha, where did Silk and Sonder come from? I mean, you said was it at Goldman Sachs before that? Or
I was at Goldman Sachs, and I was at Stitch Fix actually when I started Silk and Sonder.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So how did this come about?
Yeah. So, the inspiration for Silk and Sonder really begins from my childhood. So I'm born to South Asian immigrants, and I was the first daughter. Dad's a professor. So growing up, I was taught to believe that there's 4 avenues for success. I could be a doctor, a lawyer, an academic, or an engineer. So being the good Indian daughter that I am, I decided to study computer science and business in college. And then I wound up, chasing this path of building safety nets and chasing the gold stars, and becoming a software engineer and product manager. And that led me down, various different companies. And I think, in my mid-20s is when I experienced my first quarter life crisis. And of course, this was after a series of ruts and rock bottoms, but I'd finally built this life that looked really great from the outside. I was dating my then boyfriend, now husband. I was living in a new city. I was working at a company on the verge of going public, but I was still waking up feeling anxious, underfulfilled, unhappy, negative, and couldn't really place my finger on it. And this is, several years ago. So back then, therapy felt intimidating to navigate. Coaching felt extremely expensive. Self-help books were inspiring, but they lacked the accountability that I was seeking. And meditation, quite frankly, just didn't resonate for my brain. And so this really led me down this path of thousands of hours of research around positive psychology, bullet journaling, cognitive behavioral and narrative therapy. And I found myself picking and choosing whatever would work for me to create a product or an experience that would help guide me through this difficult time, right? I had nobody to complain to, and life looked good on the outside. And I had checked all the boxes, and I didn't know at the time, but I was living this life that wasn't aligned with my own core values. I was living in someone else's definition of success. And so started to use these evidence-based practices to create this guide for myself. And that's what led to the genesis of Silk and Sonder. I wanted a tool that combined reflection, intention, and action, and also didn't stop at just the physical product experience and the bringing pen to paper. We all know that that helps reduce anxiety and stress and boost cognitive function. But I also felt that the community-based concept was missing. And I really wanted to build a program that had a physical product, a digital product, and a community experience throughout it all. And so that's what really led to the formation of Silk and Sonder, which is a self-care and self-improvement program like I talked about. And as part of your membership, you get physical journals delivered to your doorstep every single month. It plays on the themes of novelty. So it's something fresh and delightful with a new topic so that we can explore different areas of ourselves. There's a surprise and delight element on both the aesthetics as well as the prompts that go with it. And then you also get access to our companion mobile app that houses our support group, our private social community, and personalized programming. So all kinds of content so that people can really dive deeper or build habits and kind of choose the path and start afresh every month. And then last but not least, we also have community events, because that's what I was craving is, you go to your fitness classes, if you're in a weight loss program, you have a community there. But when it came to your mental well-being, there was nothing holistic, proactive, and also, a place where accountability was easy. And so that's really led by our Silk and Sonder trained facilitators, as well as within Sonder Club, we have, people in the group exchanging ideas and advice. So that's what led to the formation of Silk and Sonder. And here we are, tens of thousands of customers in every state of the country, 95% of them saying that Silk and Sonder has helped improve their mental and emotional health within weeks of using the program. And that's, really delightful. And it makes total sense now looking back, but I had no idea that I was building a product and an experience that would far extend, the solution that I was just seeking for myself. And so just really grateful for the Sonder fam for helping me continue to build it.
Oh, thank you, Mayha. I mean, it sounds so powerful. And what I love that you've described is it seems like Silk and Sonder is not just intrapersonal in that when we're journaling, we're looking inside and we're doing this kind of private, intimate work with ourselves, but it's interpersonal. There's a community element, right? That I would imagine a lot of people wouldn't consider when they're just journaling in their own experience or wouldn't know how to access.
100%. And quite frankly, I didn't have that. I was kind of left on my own. It was only when I found myself giving feedback to others who were also struggling to figure out who they were and where they wanted to go, that I realized, oh my God, we have all these, stories to share, knowledge to gain, and also support to kind of achieve from others. And I think that's just so amazing that we've been able to build that.
Totally. And I think so many of our clients and ourselves, we're really isolated, right? And so be able to have those connected experiences so valuable. That is one way we actually can scale mental health. As someone who works with a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm often at the intersection of mental health and scalability or tech or whatever. And it's challenging to do, but the way to do that is through community. So that is so amazing that you're doing that. And I'm wondering, for either for you, Mayha, or Dr. Kwan, this could be a question for both of you. What experience do you think that we're giving our clients or people are having through Silk and Sonder in terms of what emotional experience, what needs are they getting met? What are they accessing that they're unable to otherwise that keeps them coming back, that keeps them subscribing month after month for this experience?
Dr. Kwan, do you want to take that first, or do you want me to take it?
Yeah. So, I noticed that you said that, Mayha, when you were going over your journey, that it is intimidating to find a therapist to kind of access therapy, especially, a decade ago. So I think the first part of this, what makes it so special, is that it demystifies a lot of the mental wellness and mental health experience. And for me, that's one of my personal and professional goals. It can simply finding a therapist, let alone knowing what to expect, can be so intimidating that it just keeps people from accessing the care that they need. I think that Silk and Sonder adds a very special element of community. I think I started to talk to Meha during high pandemic.
Yes.
So isolation everywhere. We also know that's layered on top of like an epidemic of isolation and loneliness in this country. So journaling itself is greatly healing alone. You can work on, goals and aspirations and processing, but when it's connected to a community, it becomes something totally different than that. We know that support, connection, belonging, these are all pillars of wellness and mental health. It's very hard to do that alone. So when we think about Sonder Club, or we think about the fact that everybody is getting these journals at the same time, doing the same prompts, doing the same exercises, knowing that even if you don't know them, somebody else, you're part of a team of people who are looking for this very, it's personal growth, this journey that you're all on together. So I think that is really important. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I really hear that. Like there's this accountability piece, which is really helpful for people. This is sort of has like a coaching element to it. And I'm kind of hearing like, is there some inspiration from ACT or perhaps existential therapy? Like I'm hearing a values alignment piece there, because I think as therapists, like we often forget that we do such meaningful work most of the time. Like we're never having that existential crisis of like, what am I doing with my life? I mean, sometimes, but a lot of the time we're so fortunate that like the work we do just really enriches our soul and we're passionate about it. But a lot of people don't have that same experience, and which it sounds like was the case for you, Meha. So is there any sort of like, just for people who are kind of wondering what orientation informs the work, it sounds like CBT, it sounds like narrative therapy, anything else, or or maybe I'm off hearing that values piece.
No, I think there's elements from all. And I think, and you all know this as therapists, some techniques work for certain people with certain conditions and some techniques don't. And so what's really amazing about Silk and Sonder is we aren't really prescribing, we are just suggesting. And so people are welcome to try something that might be more CBT inspired. And then the next time they might do something more art therapy inspired, and they can kind of pick and choose what works for them based off of the results that they're seeing. And I think that's what makes Silk and Sonder awesome, is we also layer in stuff from personal development research, right? So it's not just therapeutic and evidence-based exercises from that land, but also techniques, like from books and from other kinds of research that a lot of professors are doing in the self-help and personal development space. I do think we play on certain factors, like the novelty concept, I think is super interesting, and what that does for your brain and being able to explore different places of self. So I think it is a marriage of all these different things. And we're also learning alongside of our customers too, right? They tell us what works for them or what doesn't. And so then we can kind of think about, in the future, how do we really personalize for those that will, we have customers with ADHD, what they need might be different than someone who is actually diagnosed with depression. And so I think figuring out those, clinical issues and what we can do for them, but also for people who may not know if they have any, clinical diagnosis, or maybe they just have, just that they're just navigating life's ups and downs. And I think that's what's interesting about Silk and Sonder is it's really a playground as well.
Awesome. And you mentioned results, have you been able to measure any results? Like for those who are very scientifically driven in the audience and are like, okay, I want to recommend this, but I need it to be empirically supported. What are we seeing in terms of results, either qualitative, quantitative, or both?
Yeah, lots of, we do a lot of check-ins with our customers, and we've had thousands of customers respond to surveys that we send out. We find, like I mentioned, that 95% of our customers see an improvement to their mental and emotional health within weeks of using the program, which if you extrapolate that out, right, we know 21 days, that's what it takes to create a habit, and it takes 90 days to see permanent change. But that's if you do the work, right? So obviously that sample set of individuals is probably those that actually do it day by day and really build on that habit. 96% find Silk and Sonder to be an essential part of their self-care routine, which is really awesome for me, because journaling, I didn't realize, I was such a skeptic of journaling. I didn't consider that to be self-care. I thought of self-care as mani-pedis and massages and all the indulgent things. And to know that 96% of our surveyed users actually see Silk and Sonder as quality me time and want to spend more time on themselves over time, I think is really, really awesome. And then 89%, going back to what Dr. Kwan was talking about with loneliness and isolation, we've been starting to measure how are we doing on this loneliness epidemic factor, right? And 89% of our surveyed members said that they feel a deeper sense of connection and belonging after using the program within their first month or two. And so that, those are the kind of the metrics that we use. Also qualitatively, and this will go into what we're going to be talking about. We just are hearing more and more stories around Silk and Sonder being transformational, whether you're coming in when you're dealing with rock bottom, whether you already have a therapist or a coach or someone that you're seeing, the daily accountability and the plethora of activities to go deeper in one's own self-care and self-improvement practice is allowing them to build those necessary habits that are very hard to do when you're doing it alone or checking in once a week or once a month with an expert. And so I think, those are the qualitative stories that have really allowed us to figure out how do we make this even more accessible and actionable than it already is.
Totally. And I would imagine for people who have guilt or shame around taking that time or going through a process and spending like an hour journaling or whatever, to have it done in such a structured way and knowing that there are so many other people doing it as well, like it normalizes it. It can help reduce that shame and guilt. So that's wonderful. The perfectionist, which I'm sure we'll get into with the thinking traps. So on that, Neha, let's talk about the thinking traps assessment. Like, what was the inspiration for this?
Yeah. So I guess the engineer in me is always looking for ways to reverse engineer problems. And I was so fascinated, right? Like looking at the results and, shout out to everybody who answers all those surveys, because I do spend quite a bit of time doing my research there. And I found it fascinating to read all these stories about how Silk and Sonder is helping people build a positive mindset, switch from negative self-talk to positive self-talk and all these things. And, I started to wonder, how do we accelerate that transformation and also make it more accessible for those that maybe struggle to experience that level of change fast enough? And so I started digging, and at first I wanted to do a personality test. And then I came to Dr. Kwan with this dilemma. I said, okay, I really want to accelerate positive change. We know that this product itself is working. How can we give people the tools so that they can experience that inward transformation faster and better and easier? And she started, sharing her insights, and that got us on this topic of cognitive distortions. And, what I find fascinating is we know that personalities are somewhat fixed, but mindset is not. And when Dr. Kwan and I were looking out there in the market, we just couldn't find something out there that would help people figure out what are their negative thought patterns, what are they most susceptible to, where do they come from? But most importantly, how can we overcome them through Silk and Sonder's tools, but also beyond Silk and Sonder? And so we really wanted to create this assessment that we felt was entirely missing. Thinking traps is obviously our name for it, but for those of you who are experts, you must be familiar with the concept of cognitive distortions, which Dr. Kwan and Dr. Shea can share some insights around. But that's what really led to the inspiration behind building it. When we build things at Silk and Sonder, it's not just a money grab or something that we think will sell well. It's something that is truly going to be beneficial to individuals, mental health professionals, so that we can catalyze change in people's lives, because the world is hard right now. And so we need to build the tools that are actually going to be impactful. So that's what we created.
Totally. And I mean, I know for me as a therapist, and I imagine many other of the mental health professionals here, like we're always looking for tools that we can offer our clients, either like free or low cost, something that they can go to. And, even if maybe a person can't afford Silk and Sonder just yet, maybe they can still go do the free thinking traps assessment, right? And that can be a tool that they can use to gain a little bit more awareness and, have a little more compassion for themselves and understanding. So with that, Dr. Kwan, I know you've got to jump in 5 minutes. So let's try to squeeze as much out of you as possible before you go. I mean, a lot of the audience, I would imagine, is familiar with cognitive distortions, but maybe not everyone, because not everyone practices from a CBT framework. So can you just help us understand, what are cognitive distortions? And maybe you can give some examples. And also, where do they come from? How do these come about? Maybe were they an attempt to help us in some way at some point? Are they innate? Just give us the rundown.
Yeah, so I would cognitive distortions, just kind of generally speaking, and I love the phrase thinking traps, and I think that's what's so special about Silk and Sonder. They make everything very accessible. These kind of high impact concepts are broken down into like words that are not super cumbersome. So when we think about thinking traps, it's really the lens through which we see the world. There's kind of a general consensus that thoughts affect behaviors and mood, and these lenses can become so congested over time, and they're automatic, so we're really not aware of them. But the beauty of it is that once we do become aware of them, we can't stop seeing them everywhere. So in terms of how they kind of come up, I think it's everything from temperament to developmental experiences to family dynamics, culture. You can see, very different ways that siblings might see the world. So there is kind of this element of individuality in that. I don't know if they were I guess like an evolutionarily sound tactic that we took, but they certainly are accompanying us every moment of the way. I think that it's a really great way. Just an example of it would be to kind of think about our own thinking traps and how they occur. When I was thinking about mine, personalization comes up a lot. And I think that's very much because of the authoritarian parenting that I had as a kid. Neha's story really resonates with mine. Immigrant parents, there's this very narrow success path. And it's really, success is defined by that 100%. Anything else is kind of a failure. So you start to internalize these messages of shame. So it's very easy to hear a piece of information and then have that feel like it reflects who you are as a person, rather than take into account context or situation or luck or any of these things that could possibly lighten the emotional and mental load of what we're experiencing. So I think that is just an example of how something like parenting can really affect the way that we see the world.
Totally. I love that. Thank you, Dr. Kwan. And I'll just offer a couple more just a couple more interpretations as well. Like probably many of you listening are familiar with the negativity bias. That's something that we often share with our clients evolutionarily or through an evolutionary psych lens. Like we're programmed to look for the negative, right? I mean, classic example is if we're in the wilderness and we see something that could be a stick or it could be a snake, if you misinterpret a snake for a stick, there's a problem, right? If you misinterpret a stick for a snake, it's like, whoa, that's scary. Oh, wait, never mind. I'm fine, right? So one way to offer to our clients, like to help reduce some of the shame around having these ways of thinking, just helping them understand that, yeah, like we're socialized to be this way through, parenting, of course, what we grow up in our familiar environment, in our culture. New York for sure is a kind of like negativity culture and whatnot. And then also, yeah, it's evolutionary. So just helping people understand, like we all do this, we all have our thinking traps or cognitive distortions. I know for me, like the big ones that stick out, like I am definitely a catastrophizer. Like it drives my boyfriend crazy. I catastrophize everything, like always go to the worst case scenario. But, growing up a parentified child who, of course, became a therapist, probably like many of you, and, not having a lot of consistency or feeling safe in my life growing up, of course, I'm always going to go to the negative, right? Because, I've got to prepare for that. I've got to plan for that. I don't rely on someone to take care of me, right? So, again, when we can understand what we're more vulnerable to and then make sense of like, where did this maybe come from? How did it serve us? That can really help our clients reduce shame around it, but then also recognize, hey, this used to serve me and it no longer serves me. I also just want to note that for anyone who maybe doesn't practice through a CBT lens and maybe practices more somatically, you can perceive this as like, hey, when we have a dysregulated nervous system, we're going to be more likely to start interpreting our dysregulation in our body through this kind of lens. So it's not always that like the thought creates the feeling, but sometimes the feeling creates the thought and it keeps it going in that vicious cycle. So I think these are super adaptable no matter which way you practice. It's just about figuring out like, hey, like how does this align with the way that you work with clients and then finding a way to make that fit. And I really welcome, you are all experts in the room, everyone who's attending. I really welcome you to drop in the chat like how you might use thinking traps or cognitive distortions in your practice with clients, because I think it could be super valuable for everyone listening or attending. So, okay, so Dr. Kwan, I know that you have to run. Is there anything else that you want to offer before you go? So just we can make sure that we get all your wisdom before you do.
Yeah, I was just thinking a little bit about the genesis of this test in general. And I think working on the content over the years with Silk and Sonder, I've had a lot of insight into the fact that they do try to deliver a product that speaks to a very wide population. So in that is cognition, art, there is a lot of somatic stuff. They're trying to really invite the wider population into wellness. So I think this thinking traps test is going to be so helpful in my practice. I know that a lot of these concepts can be very cumbersome to explain. You know, there are like 100 of them. There's not, but it feels like that. But I think that's the beauty of Silk and Sonder, that they can really distill and make a beautiful, engaging product that has reach and answers the question of, so then what? Like, now that I know these things, how do I connect them to practices that that will actually help me in my lived life? So just wanted to add that. And I'm so thankful for being part of this panel.
Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Kwan, and thank you for all the work you've done on this incredible assessment to bring it to life, and for Silk and Sonder. I mean, I know I certainly speak for probably everyone here and all of their clients and millions of people in the world when we say, you know, their lives are forever changed because of it.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me here.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dr. Kwan.
I look forward to watching the whole thing.
Yeah, awesome.
Bye.
Bye.
And I just wanted to speak to Beth's comment. Would be super helpful as prep work for the MDR and IFS work that I do. This can lend itself super well to IFS, because our thinking traps are protectors. You know, they're managers. Like those part where we see like perfectionism, anxiety, whatever we might label it as, you know, how these thinking traps come up through that. Really, we're just trying to protect ourselves, you know? So we're trying to find some kind of certainty. We're trying to find some kind of safety. We're trying to prevent ourselves from the vulnerability, or protect ourselves from the vulnerability of rejection or abandonment or shame or whatever it is. So this works beautifully with IFS. Okay, so let's switch gears here now. Unless, Dr. Shea, I want to jump in and talk to you about just like using Silk and Sonder in your practice. You're such an evangelist of this, and how you use it personally. But before we do that, is there anything else, Dr. Shea, that you want to mention around like thinking traps, cognitive distortions, the assessment itself, that would be helpful for everyone to hear?
Absolutely. So as Dr. Kwan said, cognitive distortions are all about the lens. And many of us in our lives, we're looking for the meaning-making aspect. Who am I? How do I show up in the world? What is my contribution and what is my purpose? Whenever we build our life around distortions, we tend to build our life on half-truths, sometimes falsities, and that can be a barrier to us achieving that purpose for which we're created and called. And I think that one of the reasons why I really love this particular assessment and the platform by which it's rolled out is because there's still a lot of stigma around mental wellness, especially in certain communities, and I can speak specifically to the African American community. But with Silk and Sonder, it's like a doorway into therapy. It's such a gentle way to acquiesce the community into seeing that therapy is not a scary thing. It can be very beneficial. And so when you can use Silk and Sonder as a doorway, most clients then will become open to using therapeutic modalities to connecting with a therapist. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm such a fan of this particular assessment, because, again, it is in a very friendly and loving environment where there is no judgment. You can show up authentically, right, and connect with a community. But I think the barrier that we find with cognitive distortions is it really colors the lens by which we see the world. And many individuals don't really understand that they're building their life on these distortions. And so in therapy, we challenge those distortions, but you can never challenge what you don't recognize, right? So they have to emerge to the surface. And remember, 10% of how we show up in the world is conscious, right? So we tend to think that because we don't see it, it doesn't exist. Because I don't recognize it, I'm not paying attention to it, it doesn't exist. But really, it's stored in the subconscious. And I want you to remember, think about this for a moment. If you're driving to work, have you ever gotten to work and realized, oh, I don't remember passing the store or passing the school, or I don't remember seeing these things, and you know they're there because they're there every time. But the reality of it is we function in such an autonomic state most of the time because the subconscious mind is so amazing. But that's where distortions like to hide. And if we're not careful, cognitive distortions will shape our worldviews, they will shape our behaviors and our beliefs. And so we have to recognize those, challenge those, reshape those, so that when we emerge in the world, the meaning that surrounds who we are and how we are is authentic.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Shea. That's so helpful. Again, like we have to make, I can't remember I think it's a Young quote or whatever, but like, it's like, we have to make, the unconscious conscious or whatever, right? To be able to change. And, I think it could be helpful even to just spend a few moments on maybe what are some interventions with some of these cognitive distortions. And again, I would welcome anyone in the chat to also share some of the things that they would offer. But to me, when I look at these cognitive distortions, so much of it is rooted in shame. So many of these are rooted in shame and the belief that like, I am bad, I am broken, there is no room for imperfection here. If I screw up, I am unloved, I am rejected, I am abandoned, I will not survive. Because if you practice from an attachment lens, a lot of it comes back to that, right? It's like, I need to be perfect for survival. And so, when with clients, I recognize, cognitive distortions, or within myself, of course, sorry, thinking traps, I should be saying, self-compassion is a huge intervention that I will recognize and offer to clients and to myself. Because, when we're looking at things through that very like black and white or perfectionistic lens, all or nothing, magnification, really, so many of them do come back to that shame piece. Being able to remind you, it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to have flaws. That doesn't mean that you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're unlovable. That's actually the human condition, right? Shame tends to go in two directions. It either goes perfectionism or narcissism, right? Those are the ways that it shows up, and that's how we respond to it. So a lot of our clients are going to come in with more perfectionistic tendencies because, there are certainly people who are more narcissistic who come to therapy, but they're less able to look in the mirror. They're less able to have the skills they need to be able to do that work. So helping people really develop self-compassion is going to help them be able to look at those cognitive distortions or those thinking traps and be like, oh, wait, can I change my expectations? Can I see my humanity? If it were a friend or a loved one that did the same thing as me, what would I be saying to them? So self-compassion is a big one. Another one that I offer for clients is considering alternatives, right? Like, is there another possibility, right? Because when we start creating stories in our head, we attach to it and we think that is definitely the answer. That's 100% what's going to happen. What about another option? What else could it be? Is there another alternative? Another reason that person hasn't texted you back? Is there anything else besides, and try to come up with like even sort of silly or absurd things. Like, is it that, I don't know, they dropped their phone off a bridge and it fell in the water and it's not working or whatever, So really helping people come up with these various different alternatives so they're not going to attach to so much to what they perceive as like the truth. And then the final one I'll offer, and there are so many more, but just for purposes of time, the final one I'll offer is practicing being in the vulnerability of hope. And this is more of a somatic intervention. A lot of our clients are really trying to attach to certainty, and that's what makes them feel safe, and that's what makes them feel comfortable. And so when there's a possibility of disappointment, the possibility of rejection, the possibility of hurt or sadness or abandonment or whatever it is, they're going to skew toward the negative, or this is definitely what's happening, or whatever it is, because again, it helps them feel safe, it helps them feel in control. And so helping them sit and be with that vulnerability of like, what would it be like to hope? What would it be like to sit in the possibility of like something really good could also happen, right? Being negative or negativity or a lot of these cognitive distortions are coping mechanisms. For those who practice IFS, they're protectors, right? And so helping people kind of be in that space and learn what that's like in their body, and then practice again self-compassion in response to some of that discomfort can be a really beautiful intervention. So if there's anyone else who wants to suggest any other interventions or ways of working with cognitive distortions, please do, and we'll maybe have a few minutes at the end. But I just wanted to offer those because I think sometimes, like as therapists, we can identify them and we're like, hey, don't do that. But then our clients are like, but then what do I do once I notice it, right? Like awareness is the first step, and then change has got to come along. So okay, so Dr. Shea, so let's then get back to how you use Silk and Sonder with your clients, and just what your personal experience has been with Silk and Sonder's program.
Absolutely. So again, I am a fan because I've used Silk and Sonder for over 2 years, and I have found that it creates a place of safety. So I think one of the things that we often fail to remember sometimes as therapists are the simple things. safety, attunement, and understanding the functionality of the habit. We tend to want to label certain behaviors as good, bad, healthy, unhealthy. And Gabor Mate and some of the other theorists, Daniel Siegel, some of them, really talk about getting back to the space of creating safety, attuning with the client, attuning with yourself, and then looking at our habits and understanding the functionality of those habits. And so for me, that's what Silk and Sonder does. Because I'm neurodivergent, meaning that when I sit down, I like to have multiple ways to stimulate my brain. I love the fact that there's narrative therapy, there's art therapy, there's journaling exercises. There are ways to identify my goals, not only for the week, but for the month. The layout allows you to do those check-ins, to reality-base some of those thoughts, right? To check your narratives. And the beautiful thing is each and every month, you get a new planner. And so I can be a bit perfectionistic in some things, and I like the ability that I can start over. There's a new theme of the month. There is a new focus, right? And so because I had such positive personal experiences, I recommended it to my clients. And so I recommended, especially to my clients who are in the neurodivergent realm, those who have or are diagnosed with or have some of the symptoms of ADHD or difficulty focusing, right? I love it with clients who have symptoms of anxiety because it allows them, there's a place in Silk and Sonder where you can track your mood. And if you really want to reality base, right, the symptom or this belief that you have, I will identify maybe my top 5 or 6 moods. And each day I track that mood. And what it has allowed me to do, and it also has allowed my clients to do when they meet with me once a week, open up your Silk and Sonder journal. And what has been your primary mood this week? Has it been anxiety? Have we seen a decrease this month? And so the layers of accountability that we find in Silk and Sonder allows for a therapist to use it as a companion tool, again, that is user-friendly, that caters to the varying learning styles of the clients that we're working with. Also, the app that has the daily rituals in it that they can go in and take, the fun games, the different challenges that they can do with Meha. Also, just being able to come together in community on the weekends. I attend a Sonder Social every Saturday or Sunday, depending on the week, and it allows me to take the time to be intentional about my life. One of my sayings that I say to my clients all the time, and I put it on my website, social media, is I say, we've been given a divine gift, and that gift is the ability to choose. So you get to choose. So there are layers of empowerment and positive psychology embedded within. And that is why I'm such a promoter, simply because the community that I serve, which is a spiritual community and the African American community, there are still a lot of stigma around mental wellness. This is a way for me to introduce it to them and to gain their buy-in. And as I train other therapists, to show them that this is a tool that you can use when working with your clients, but use it on yourself first, and then you can recommend it from firsthand experience.
Totally. And I mean, even if just for us as therapists or as mental health professionals, I mean, we need our self-care too, right? Like oftentimes we're the ones who are experiencing total burnout because we're not taking that time. And so this can be a really beautiful way to just devote time to ourselves and process whatever we need to process and just check in. Wonderful. Well, I want to be mindful of time, leave some time for questions, and maybe not keep everyone here the whole hour because that can be a long time for an online panel. But, you know, before we wrap, you know, Meha, is there anything else you want to add in terms of like what you're seeing, you know, anything that you want to recommend or suggest to the community of supportive therapists, other ways that we can, you know, use it in our practice, or anything else you're hearing from other therapists that maybe hasn't already been stated?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Dr. Shea, thank you for sharing your story. I think, you know, it's very humbling for me as a founder, where I created this product and I didn't know that it would have the impact that it has had, right? it was done with intention and a lot of science. And so it makes sense. But I think I knew that we were onto something when I took a peek under the hood and started to see therapists and mental health professionals and coaches talk about how they heard about Silk and Sonder, oftentimes from a client who would bring their journal and show them their habit tracker and their mood tracker and, get their help and wisdom in deciphering some patterns. And then they go out and buy it themselves. They try it themselves. For some people, it works for them. For others, it doesn't. But what you can do as a mental health professional that others cannot do as well is identify which of your clients could benefit from this. And most importantly, and this is the part that I think is just phenomenal, I already know that Silk and Sonder is helping people at the individual level and at the community level personally. But I didn't realize it's helping the professional and client relationship as well. And so when I talk to therapists, it's so inspiring to hear their stories on how they recommend Silk and Sonder, and they start to work with the clients who bring in the patterns like you talked about, Dr. Shea, and that helps, the professional come up with ideas and solutions. And so I think that's something I just highly recommend. And honestly, in this day and age, advertising is tough. It's really hard to get the word out there. This isn't, circa 5 years ago. And all I ask is, if you like Silk and Sonder, if you're curious about Silk and Sonder, oftentimes people are reluctant to share because, they don't know if it'll actually help or not. Just treat it like another tool in the tool belt. Whatever, you recommend journaling, think of Silk and Sonder as a great entry point or gateway, and make sure you tell your client that try it. If it doesn't work for you, it's okay. They don't need to feel forced. And I just really, really would love to put that ask out there. As a woman, I tend to not ask for help all the time, but my ask is keep spreading the word. We can give you all the tools you need. If you need a free printable, you'll be seeing that in an email after this talk. If you need advice, if you want to connect with other therapists who are using Silk and Sonder in their practice, we are here to facilitate that. It's up to all of us to have the broader impact, because 1 in 2 US adults is now lonely. And I can't even imagine what it's going to be like for the kids. I saw some folks have youth in their practice. We have a Sonder Kids Journal that you can also start to use with them. I just really, really want to put that ask out there. The more word of mouth that we can get, the more that you share thinking traps with your clients and others in your networks, in your Facebook groups, wherever you can go, just help us help the world, because that's how we can have that compounding impact globally versus Silk and Sonder, doing all the little things. So just appreciate all the help that you all continue to do, and just don't hesitate to ask us for more tools to make it easier for all of you. And the last thing I'll add on the thinking traps test before we go into questions, for those of you that have been with Silk and Sonder for a long time and know how I work, how my team works, we are about experimentation, and we are about iterating and evolving, and we like to bring things to market quickly and then make things better. And so when you get the thinking traps assessment, first of all, take it for yourself, see how it works, ask your friends to take it, ask your clients to take it, and don't hesitate to give feedback, because that's how we get better. So in the results of the thinking traps test, we have affirmations, journaling prompts, possible reasons you have this cognitive distortion as one of your top one selected, and just language around how you're not alone. I highly recommend, if you have better ideas for the content or have your own feedback, feel free to either share it with your clients or share it with us so that we can factor that in. That's how we get better over time. So please, please, please don't hesitate. This is a community-based platform, and I mean that deep, with our customers as well.
And it's so clear you're a woman entrepreneur, Meha, when you're like, well, we welcome feedback, this is iterative, right? So thank you. And yes, I certainly will be an evangelist of Silk and Sonder and spread the word. And I hope everyone who buys in will do the same. Dr. Shea, thank you so much for sharing your story, for all of your wisdom, for both of you for sharing your stories. Does anyone have any questions for Lexi or for anyone else here, either on the panel, myself, Meha? Or if they just want to share any thoughts before we wrap, we see all of you as experts as well. You're the ones on the ground doing the work. So, really grateful to hear your perspective as well. Okay, so let's see, from Beth, it says, I can't say enough about how much this product has helped me personally within only a few weeks of using it. As a therapist myself, I truly believe in it. I already wrote for my monthly goals to write a letter to Meha and the team to tell me how much it has helped me, but I get to thank you in person. I have already been recommending Silk and Sonder to clients. Would love to be able to give them some sort of coupon, but I'm reluctant to give them the $10 for $10 coupon as it may appear as I'm trying to give a kickback. Could there be another coupon for just us therapists to give our clients? I love that question, Beth. I feel the same way as you. I don't feel great about anything that offers me a kickback recommending to my clients, from supplements to something like this. So I second that question, Meha. Is there a way we can just give a coupon to our clients without it actually offering us a kickback?
Absolutely. So, one of the things I always talk about at Silk and Sonder is everyone's driven by different things. So there might be a group of you that actually could use the kickback or don't want to make that apparent. So there's, a way that we can do that through the affiliate platform. If that makes you feel, squeezy, or that's not the way that you like to do things, we can just give you a code. And it could just be, if you don't feel comfortable putting your name on the code, it can be, a random letter and number generator. And so what I ask you to do is maybe email hello@Silk and Sonder, make it very clear on the ask, and we'll absolutely get that set up. And then I think we will probably have a separate alias for anybody who's a professional, so that you can always ask us questions or ideas, that you have to make this possible, and easy. And if you have ideas on what the coupon should be, right? Does your client need 50% off to get started? Do they just need to download the app and get the 7-day trial? Like, let us know what inserts you want, what kind of incentive would be most compelling for you to share. We're happy to make that possible. Obviously can't give everything for free forever, because we also have bills to pay, but we definitely want to make that any kind of barrier easier. And luckily Silk and Sonder is a very affordable product for most, and we have different options. So, those that can't afford the full program can download the app, and that's only, $5 to $10 a month compared to the 15 to 20.
Thank you, Meha. Yeah, it sounds super accessible. Next question is there a way to gift Silk and
these.
Sonder as a subscription? I am a coach that has wanted to give my 3-month membership built into my fees. So what a beautiful idea. But it's not possible to subscribe as a client without subscribing myself.
Yes, great question. I feel like our gifting program could be better, but we do have sets that have 1 month and 3-month gift subscriptions. So people can then, create their accounts themselves. So that's definitely something. You can do it as a package, or you can do it as, just 1 month or 3-month gifts. If you actually, for example, if you do group coaching, or if you're doing this with a group of friends, you can also buy multi-packs. So if everybody wants to do December journals together, or if you want to gift your physical journals, if you meet your clients in person, we have multi-packs available. I think it's a 3, 5, and 10 pack, and they're discounted. And so you can definitely gift a physical product if that's your preference as well.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? And it sounds like it was hello@Silk and Sonder. Yes, it could probably also be a place that people could write if they don't want to have something right now, or.
Yeah, and I think I would just take note, maybe Jen, if you can just take whoever's Cindy and Heather, anyone who is mentioning their interest in gift subscriptions, let's just grab their names so we can do the hard work of sending exact steps there. Yay, Dr. Shea, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was going to suggest, so for those who don't want to fall into the place of feeling like they're receiving a kickback, what I have done is I actually let my clients know that the proceeds that would normally come to me go into a separate fund, and it either allows an individual who cannot afford therapy to receive pro bono therapy, or I have also used it to purchase Silk and Sonder journals to give to other clients. So there's a special fund that those finances go into. I make sure to let my clients know it does not go in my pocket, but it goes back into the community. And so that is another way that you can, even as an affiliate, receive those funds, but then turn around and utilize them in the community, because there's so many individuals who need therapy but don't have access or cannot afford it. And it allows us in the therapeutic world to provide that community service at a discounted rate or even free of charge, because those resources are there to help those clients. So scholarships, all kinds of things you can do with those funds.
That's such a great idea. Thank you, Dr. Shea. Awesome. Sort of a buy one, give one kind of model, it almost. Yeah. Great.
Right.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you to all of you who took the time on this Wednesday night. Is that what it is? Wednesday night, and, dropped in and, learned about Silk and Sonder and about thinking traps, and yeah, just taking the time to do this work for yourselves and for your clients. And I hope, you're able to take some time to practice some self-care this evening as well, if this felt like work, but hopefully it felt fun too. And thank you to our panelists, of course, Dr. Kwan, who had to leave early, but thank you so much, Meha. Thank you so much, Dr. Shea, for sharing your wisdom, for all that you're doing to, democratize in many ways. I hesitate to use the word democratize in the startup space, but I really do believe you are democratizing, self-awareness and self-inquiry, self-inquiry, and being able to just tap in and really try to understand ourselves and do this guided journaling that many people wouldn't ever be able to access otherwise.
Yeah, and thank you all so much for making the time, but also honestly for all the work that you do, and all the world needs you guys more than ever, and I know you go above and beyond to serve your clients and beyond. So just really appreciate all that you do. It's inspiring to see, and it's inspiring to have you be a part of the Sonder fam.
Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity to gather together, to talk with each of you, and most importantly, to talk to the therapeutic community. We need each other, right? And this is a tool that we can use for ourselves, and it's a tool that we can recommend and use with our clients. So thank you for the opportunity.
And please feel free to, I speak for myself, please feel free to reach out, Megan at meganbruno.com or Megan J. Bruno on Instagram. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And I would imagine the same for the other panelists as well.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Different handles and contact information.
Send all the questions to Megan.
Great.
Absolutely. I can be reached at theheartcenteredjourney.com. Also, you can reach me at the Heart Centered Journey on Instagram and Facebook.
Yep. And you can reach me at Meha Agrawal at silkandsonder.com. You probably get plenty of emails from me. So just search me in your inbox and hit reply to one of those. Really, really excited to have the therapy community, supporting all the work that we're doing. It's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to solve this loneliness epidemic once and for all.
That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Night,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.